Omie, you have the distinct ability to help people ready to come out of their denial and wake up. For myself, I had a lot of suffering, and I had to learn how to overcome that. If all I gave somebody was the thought that they're not alone with it and that they're not crazy, that's huge. My name's Omie Coach. What I do is I alleviate people's suffering. There was a lot of different things that went on growing up at home. My mother divorced my father before I was born. My mom was a student. She was a single parent. My father didn't have anything to do with me. He had a lot of mental issues, and he was a drug addict and an alcoholic. And he basically dropped out of life. So he was not around. I didn't know who my father was. And I went and I asked my mother, I said, well, who's my dad? And then she went and asked him, and he didn't want me to know. Because see, he would hang out with my mom and all her friends, so I knew who he was as a person. His name was Peter. I knew who Peter was, but I didn't know that was my dad. I was confused. It was very confusing to me that somebody would be your kin and not acknowledge you. And that was the worst disrespect anybody could ever do. And I said to his back, and he's sitting there on the stool, and I said, hi, Dad. And he didn't turn around. And I didn't elevate my voice at all, and I said, hi, Peter. And he turned around, and he tousled my hair, and he said, hey, kid, how you doing? When you've been abandoned and you don't have a father or a mother, you don't know what, it's like you're angry at a ghost. You have nowhere to place your feeling. You don't even know that feeling inside of you is about being left. You don't really know because there's just this void. As much as that hurts, I've resolved a lot of that. I don't have any shame around it anymore. See, I used to think that there was something wrong with me. Feeling alone with your pain is the most horrible feeling. But there was also a predator that was a friend of all of my mom and my father and everything like that. And he molested all the children that were in that area. He was after all the children, boys and girls, at a very young age. I was raised with a group of boys that were my mom's friends, and this predator would try to go after those boys. And I would go offer myself up so that he wouldn't hurt them. I don't have to sacrifice myself anymore. It's really what I want to help people with, is being able to defend their right to heal and instill in them the belief that they can. You know, the neglect and the abuse that I experienced early in childhood had put in a set of programming inside of me, a belief system that I had to cast out. I didn't have any value, and I wasn't worth anything. So that played out in so many different ways in how I made my decisions, until I realized that that was a false belief. And I had to put things in place to counteract that belief. There's a lot of things that alleviate trauma, but they've only studied a few. This box is the one that created the trauma. That solution is not going to be there. You cannot solve the problem with the same mindset that created the problem. So it's powerful what we believe, because we're all connected, and animals are all connected. We're connected to this planet. We're connected to each other. And unfortunately, in our culture is developed in a way where we have become so disconnected. Trauma is there to keep you safe. The neurology forms different in your development in early childhood. Just what goes on in our modern culture is enough to traumatize somebody so that they're operating as if they're being chased by a tiger. I don't have a cure. The person does their own healing. I show them where it is. They have what's inside them to do this work. Most of the time we find out that the trauma is the way that we assimilated the situation and the meanings we attribute to it. Once we learn how to unpack what meanings we gave to that and whether those meanings are serving us or not serving us, then we can decide what we want to do with them. What part of our personalities that developed out of that are good and we want to keep, and what parts of these behaviors are not something that's serving us, and do we want to discard those? But that's a choice. Being aware that you have that choice, that's powerful. It's not always the hurts or the traumas that we know about. We know about those. If we're working on ourselves, we worked at those to death. It's the ones that we don't know about, that we can't see. The technique I use works with your unconscious, and your logical brain wouldn't know that that's the story you needed to tell yourself to heal yourself. The client comes up with all their own imagery, all their own ideas about this. It's led by them. I just guide them and keep the emotional safety. They do all the healing because they have all the puzzle pieces, because it's their trauma and their life and their story. It has to make sense inside them. Some of the techniques that I use, I put together a set of tools and techniques that work for that individual. It's not cookie cutter. I'm there for the healing, but the approach I use is I'm a transformational coach in that I'm here to get results. Sitting around forever with our own trauma in some analysis way it does not work. Now, I'm not trying to put people down that have spent years and years in analysis, but a couple sessions with me, they're like, oh my God, I've spent 10 years in analysis and I never got that far. I'm good at getting to the meat of things, cutting through the BS, getting to what's really going on with somebody, and together make some movement where those emotional blocks are so that we can move in another direction and overcome that. A big group of people that I like to work with are what I call helpers and healers. So these are people that are in professions where they heavily deal with the public, and the public that they deal with is a traumatized population. And in some people's professions, like nurses and doctors and EMTs and emergency workers, so there's all these professions where what happens over time is that they can get what we call secondary trauma or compassion fatigue. And it can really cause a lot of damage for them personally. That can really get into somebody's life and really affect their health, their well-being, their psyche, their sleep, their eating, their, and then at times they're not able to do their job. I fell in love with them as people because I could see my undying sacrifice to help others in them, and that's what they do as well. And so I really related to them. I think that the universe put inside these really special people, because I work with nurses a lot, they put inside these really special people the innate ability to be empathetic when people are at their worst. If I can help that person still do what they're so suited for, then I think that that's a great service, because we need all those people. We need all those helpers and healers, is what I call them. Before I went back to school to study psychology, I was always listening to all these speakers, Tony Robbins, Lisa Nichols, Les Brown. I grew up on Oprah. She talks about her intimate story, the people that most impacted me. And that way I knew I wasn't alone. They would share about how they were abused, neglected, all this stuff. And I would look at them and they would have a wonderful life and they would have transformed. and I thought, okay, it's possible. I was broke, I was a single parent, and I would listen to all of these things. It saved me. When the therapy didn't work, that stuff worked. I was sitting at a gas station, and it hit me what my purpose was here in life, my calling. And many people are called, but lots of people don't answer that phone. And I had made a deal with my Maker a long time ago that if he would save me from the pits of despair of active addiction to where I could parent my children and be a valuable citizen, that my life belonged to him. Belief is the most powerful force in this universe. And so if I can just bring that other human being into alignment with the belief that it's possible, then that's a big deal, because I think that the universe will come to converge on anybody that desires to be healed.